Clarity fades before burnout. There is a stage in leadership that most professionals never name, yet it quietly shapes every decision they make. Performance may still appear strong, meetings continue to run on schedule, and objectives are still achieved, yet something important begins to shift beneath the surface. Energy feels thinner, focus feels scattered, and simple choices begin to take longer than they should. Burnout does not begin with exhaustion. Burnout begins with the slow erosion of clarity. When clarity fades, leaders do not immediately notice because outward performance can remain intact. Targets are still reached, responsibilities are still fulfilled, and results may even look impressive on paper. What changes first is the internal range of thought, the ability to weigh options calmly, and the capacity to think beyond immediate pressure. Strategic thinking narrows long before productivity declines. Decision quality softens long before resignation letters are written. Confidence becomes quieter long before someone says they are overwhelmed. Most organizations do not track clarity. Metrics capture output, attendance, revenue, deadlines, and deliverables. Yet clarity remains invisible inside most reporting systems. Because clarity is not measured, its decline often goes unnoticed until the damage has already expanded. A leader may begin to default to the safest option instead of the strongest option. Innovation may slow because risk tolerance decreases. Conversations may shorten because patience feels limited. Emails may become brief because mental energy is stretched thin. None of those signs look dramatic. None of those moments appear alarming in isolation. Taken together, however, they signal that cognitive strain is already present. Burnout is the headline. Clarity loss is the early chapter. Within the REST framework, recognize is the first step for a reason. Recognition requires awareness of subtle shifts before crisis appears. Subtle shifts include delayed decisions, hesitation during strategy sessions, avoidance of complex conversations, and reliance on routine instead of thoughtful analysis. Support does not begin with recovery. Support begins with noticing. Most professionals wait for collapse before they intervene. That approach is reactive rather than strategic. Proactive leadership requires attention to early signals that others might ignore. Consider how decision fatigue develops. Each unresolved issue consumes cognitive bandwidth. Every postponed conversation occupies mental space. Repeated exposure to high demand without reflection compresses thinking. Compressed thinking leads to narrow choices. Narrow choices limit creative outcomes. Limited outcomes reduce momentum. Reduced momentum increases pressure. Pressure accelerates exhaustion. Exhaustion eventually becomes burnout. The visible breakdown is not the beginning of the story. The breakdown is the result of months of unaddressed mental strain. Clarity protects leadership capacity. Clarity strengthens communication. Clarity preserves strategic thinking. Without clarity, even talented leaders begin to operate below their potential. Operating below potential rarely happens overnight. Gradual decline feels manageable at first. Manageable decline feels temporary. Temporary decline often becomes normalized. Normalized strain becomes culture. Once strain becomes culture, burnout spreads quietly across teams. Healthy leadership requires deliberate pauses. Pauses allow reflection. Reflection restores perspective. Perspective widens options. Wider options increase confidence. Confidence stabilizes performance. Stable performance supports long-term success. Many professionals equate speed with strength. Speed can be useful, yet constant acceleration reduces thoughtful analysis. Thoughtful analysis prevents costly errors. Errors often rise when leaders feel rushed. Rushed thinking produces short-term fixes rather than sustainable solutions. Sustainable solutions require calm evaluation. Calm evaluation demands mental space. Mental space depends on protected clarity. Clarity thrives when leaders create structured recovery inside their routines. Recovery does not require extended absence from responsibility. Recovery requires intentional adjustment of pace, priorities, and boundaries. Boundaries protect attention. Attention directs energy. Energy fuels performance. Performance without boundaries becomes depletion. Depletion without intervention becomes burnout. Recognizing clarity loss early changes the trajectory of an entire organization. Instead of waiting for resignation, leaders can recalibrate expectations. Instead of waiting for conflict, teams can review workload distribution. Instead of waiting for visible breakdown, executives can create space for strategic reset. Reset does not imply weakness. Reset demonstrates wisdom. Wisdom acknowledges limits before limits force interruption. A high-performing executive may resist slowing down because productivity appears strong. Strong output can mask internal strain. Internal strain influences tone, patience, and judgment long before measurable outcomes shift. Judgment determines culture. Culture determines retention. Retention influences long-term growth. Everything connects back to clarity. Clarity supports measured decisions. Measured decisions protect reputation. Reputation influences opportunity. Opportunity sustains leadership influence. Influence grows strongest when thinking remains clear and balanced. The absence of clarity creates reactive leadership. Reactive leadership increases volatility. Volatility destabilizes teams. Destabilized teams lose trust. Lost trust damages morale. Damaged morale reduces innovation. Reduced innovation limits competitive advantage. Competitive advantage requires consistent mental sharpness at the top. Clarity is not abstract. Clarity is structural. Structure determines sustainability. Sustainability ensures longevity. Longevity builds legacy. Legacy depends on leaders who think clearly under pressure. Pressure will always exist. Clarity determines how pressure is processed. Processing pressure with narrow thinking intensifies risk. Processing pressure with expanded thinking produces strength. Expanded thinking emerges when leaders feel supported rather than strained. Support begins with recognition. Recognition invites exploration. Exploration identifies root causes. Root causes inform meaningful action. Meaningful action prevents escalation. Prevention protects people. Protected people perform consistently. Consistent performance stabilizes organizations. Stability builds confidence across every level of leadership. Confidence grounded in clarity does not fluctuate with temporary stress. Temporary stress becomes manageable when leaders understand how to widen perspective before exhaustion sets in. Perspective widens when leaders review priorities honestly. An honest review may reveal overload. Overload may require delegation. Delegation may require trust. Trust strengthens teams. Stronger teams reduce individual burden. Reduced burden restores energy. Restored energy supports creative thinking. Creative thinking drives strategic growth. Strategic growth depends on leaders who are mentally present. Mental presence decreases when clarity fades. Presence strengthens when recovery is built into workflow. Workflow adjustments protect cognitive range. Cognitive range expands decision quality. Decision quality determines long-term direction. Direction influences every stakeholder. Stakeholders depend on steady leadership. Steady leadership depends on maintained clarity. Burnout is the visible consequence of neglected clarity. Visible consequences often receive urgent attention. Early indicators require discipline to notice. Discipline distinguishes reactive managers from proactive leaders. Proactive leaders understand that mental sharpness deserves protection just as much as revenue. Revenue grows when teams feel guided rather than pressured. Guidance flows from clear thinking. Clear thinking flows from structured rest. Structured rest does not eliminate responsibility. Structured rest strengthens responsibility. Strong responsibility requires sustained focus,